Do an iconic character, Freddy Krueger, Jason, and these are all iconic figures. And I was like, oh, there's not a whole lot of female iconic characters. The whole film concept started because of one series of emails that I was having with this guy who used to be in distribution. And I was just telling him, I said, I'm so bored waiting on all this stuff. He's like, well, you got a camera, make a movie. I was like, make a horror film, make a little horror film and, sell it.
I've got something that you must think about, my friend.
And that would be?
That would be horror.
Excuse me? I really don't want to do horror. No. I don't do horror. That was my father's thing. I grew up in horror. My father did Don't Look in the Basement, Poor White Trash Part 2. Low budget horror films are what I grew up with. And I was like, I don't know, I don't really want to do it. And then he said something like,
I know you can do it, okay? You're a writer. Just write it.
Okay, well, what should I write about? What should I do? What should I write about?
I don't care. Write about anything.
I went ahead and I thought about it for a minute, and I was just being cute, And I was like, fine, done. I'll do a horror film about a guy that doesn't want to make a horror film. So the first thing I thought about was eyes. Eyes are the windows to the soul, and that's my big thing. And so, as it so happens, I had just gotten through shooting a teaser trailer for another film, this film that I was actually working on called Freeborn.
A friend of mine knew him, and he was looking for a girl with nice eyes. I was like, oh, I have a friend, Ariane. She's got some nice eyes. It's like, no acting really, just, eyes. I need eyes.
I need someone that's got eyes that look wolf-like, or, just great eyes. To all the local people that I knew, and finally somebody emailed me back with this picture. And so I saw the picture, I was like, yeah, she's got great eyes. It's like, okay, I didn't care if she could act or not. It wasn't about acting, so I brought her in.
So I get cast as the eye girl, and it starts to rain, and so I have to say like 3 lines.
It was raining outside, and I was like, oh, no, I'm not going to do it. And then she was like, oh, no, if it's raining, that's great, let's do it. She's, oh, I'm all about that. And I was like, she's a trooper.
And we go out there and we shoot it, and it's just awesome. And he's like, oh, you can act.
You know if she finds out about it, she only has 2 choices, and only one of those means she can live.
She actually's got talent. She's actually, this isn't just a pair of eyes. This is, And so I already had her in my mind. I was like, what can I do with her? And I was lacking inspiration on the whole thing. I was like, I need a muse of some kind. And I was like, that's it. I'll do a thing about this muse that comes and makes him write a horror film, and blah blah blah. And it was like a week that I had it.
So a week later, I get a call, and he's like, hey, you wouldn't want to happen to play the lead in a film I just wrote a week ago? It's like, sure, I'll check it out.
And she was like, okay, great, oh, that'd be awesome. So she came and she read it, and she was great. She was great for the part.
The character of Victoria was such a complex character. She was evil, but at the same time, you liked her a lot. And she had points.
I wanted to have this, very, very proper demeanor, and just very, she's very English, and it's like, oh, Victoria.
Problem?
We worked on a lot together, but Ariane really took over the reins of that role.
She's benefiting herself definitely, because this is something she enjoys doing. And she enjoys teaching. And she wouldn't do anything that she didn't necessarily want to do. And yes, she is there to help Jim.
You finish writing, and if you still want me to, I'll leave you alone.
You want me to make a deal with you?
Jim, I'm not the devil. At least not yet.
And yes, as far as morals, they might be a little off.
I don't want any more debts. You got that?
I can't be held responsible if people are stupid. But I think Victoria is who she is. And as far as motives, they're all selfish.
Hold her.
I see.
Hold her.
I guess I'll have to do all the killing myself. Just one of those characters you're meant to play.
And it scares me to think that there's actually some of Victoria in Ariane. But, okay, only made the part better.
I got called by Tony. He's like, hey, I want to get you some experience. We want to do some things. Why don't you show up to my house and I want you to meet some people, run through this stuff, and I'm writing this movie. I want to give you a part. And I'm like, yeah, I'll get another 3-minute kind of I'll be in a film for a couple of minutes. It'll be awesome.
I'd known Ed for a few years. I had met him doing wargaming, this live action role playing thing, and there's a lot of great actors, potential actors in that kind of thing, because they build characters and they improv them and they, in development and all that. And so, but I'd met this guy, big guy.
Met him first time, and I was like, hi, it's so nice to meet you. He's a massive guy, but just the nicest guy in the world, and ended up being brilliant as this character.
Then I saw the script, and I swear to God, I like, Carl, wow. And I read through it, and I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, Tony, you sure this is what you want to... Because that's Carl. That's he has more than 3 lines.
The whole thing started was, Ed was telling a story, and it was a story at one of these role-playing games. And it was after the event was over, and we were all having dinner or something. Ed was like, okay, so there we were like, undead. And these undead were coming and drop, bop, 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 and I was like, oh my God, please don't kill me. It's like, and so he had this way of communicating. I was like, that's fascinating. And so I just was like, what a character.
Tony wrote Carl based on me and renamed it, or based on Ed and renamed it Carl. I get really excited about certain things, and I get really wrapped up in them, and I want to push everybody along with them and grab them all into the moment, and I create this whirlwind of activity, and people just kind of, and then they're like, see.
I was like, I needed somebody that represented the horror fan, whether it be, psychological horror, schlock horror, whatever, that wanted the guts and that, and all that. And Ed telling that story just fit the bill.
I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Thank you, though. I'm glad I'm in your film. He's like, no, you don't understand. This character can make or break my film. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Sure, first time ever on film. Thanks for giving that to me.
Well, I think the very first scene that we shot was the scene in the dining room where it was the murder and maiming implements scene.
Yeah, I was having some hard times with some lines because every time the camera was on me, it's like, holy crap, it's on me.
He was just nervous, and so I grabbed this flower off the back of the table, and I was like, here, hold this flower. And I was like, what's this for? And I said, no questions, action.
Common household items, paper clips, ice makers, soda can. Soda can would work perfectly.
A soda can?
Yeah, take a soda can, you grab somebody's throat and shove it down the soda can.
Soda can.
It'll work, trust me.
It came into view. He's like, oh yeah, you can do the, all this. Beautiful. And I was like, that was actually the first time I thought, this actually might be a pretty good film. I lived for a while in Deep Ellum. And Deep Ellum, at the time, it was the heart of the artist movement. We are above all things mediocrity and beyond, and I was like, I'll make him like that. I'll make him like a snood, and he's a hyper, intelligent, intellectual, pseudo-intellectual, discussion and no action, and so I was like, well, he's got to have a friend because we've got to be able to pull this off.
I do remember it being along the lines of, he'd gotten to the point where it was going to be about a character that, wanted to write How Green Was My Valley, but they were trying to get him to write Psycho 4.
So when I thought about, he needs a pseudo-intellectual friend, I was like, Christian Taylor, immediately. First thing came to mind.
You need somebody to sound like a pretentious, egregious person. Oh, that's... I wonder how you ever thought of me for that. That's... I mean, are you sure? Are you... Yeah, so that's how I heard about the character, at least.
Because Christian he's a walking encyclopedia. The man can dribble off. I mean, he's like, oh look, here's this plate. Yes, well, in 1947 the blah, 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 plate industries blah blah. But of course, plates were written about originally by Aristotle, who wrote in this blah 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 blah. And I was like, where did you get that? You know, it's like, oh, that's why I read it. He reads all the time.
Oh, I came up with the name Blake. Well, there are a lot of things I would immediately draw that to, but, you know, most particularly William Blake, the late 18th century, often called a romantic poet. I think that's a bit of a misnomer. Many scholars would immediately hit me over the head.
But he's also an actor, and a great actor. And so when I wrote the part, I was like, I'm not going to be able to come off with some of the stuff that Christian is saying. You know, no way. And so I actually wrote, kind of like Star Trek, you know, and they write, it looks like you've got a tech problem.
Did your agent ever get back to you about my project? Open brackets, Christian fills in here, close brackets.
You know, I've got Carl is, horror is like this, and these people are, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, well, Christian, you say something intellectual.
Socioaesthetic Malfeasance. I took a rather unfair advantage of that, actually. I think I even increased my line count.
I said, come up with 4 or 5 things. I think I gave him like 10 minutes. I went and got some coffee and came back. And then he started with...
Oh, did your agent ever get back to you about that script I sent him? Glengarry Speed, the American Buffalo Plow Ross, the experimental conflation of 3 David Mamet plays.
Glengarry Speed, the American Buffalo Plow Ross, the experimental conflation of 3 David Mamet plays.
Improbability Jones, the superhero who derives his powers from people's disbelief in him.
It was hard. There's some of the shots where the camera actually jiggles a little bit because I'm behind it, and I'm trying not to laugh because it's just... Oh, I'd love to see a good essay as it depicts the creative soul and a good intellectual dissection of the primordial soul as it affects the creative spirit, something like that.
It's what I called just the other night with some friends. He was calling for me to speak in the apotheosis of pretentious polysyllaby, and I guess the hardest thing about quoting it is that I knew exactly what all those words meant. You know, the metaphorical children's films, Stanley Stokes' Wild Ride, the one with the anthropomorphic allegorical centipede, Stumpy Joe. I very specifically said something that had to do with the scene. I mean, sure, I said, you know, ineluctable instead of inescapable. Now, that's actually really the key to sounding smarter than you are. It's, you take a simple word and you just use a synonym which is fairly archaic or just never heard of. Well, think on it. I'd love to read a good dissertation on the ineluctable nature of the primordial drive as it affects the creative soul.
I'm not going to hurt you. I'm simply...
I wanted to make a fun film. I wanted to make something that wasn't too heavy, but would still, you know, leave you going, oh, that was kind of fun. You know, that was funny and it was fun, and ooh, it kind of got scary towards the end. And that was, you know, an overall enjoyable film.
This film was made with the absolute minimum production. It was sometimes just Tony and I, and a camera, and some makeup.
Oh, okay. I can't act. I've got to go to my trailer.
We don't have a trailer. Got the old tool shed out back. It was like, I wanted to do this film, and I wanted to do it my way, and I didn't want to have anyone to answer to except myself. I wanted to see if I could make it, you know, with what I wanted, and see how well it would work out. That way, if something failed, I knew why it failed, and I let it fail. So, you know, I'd be able to fix it, and I'd be able to learn from it.
So, you know, you get on scene and like Tony's running around setting up lights and throwing his cue cards and painting a background, and I swear to God, he's literally like painting or doing a mold of somebody, and he's got special effects. And
I'm gonna see how much we can do with like as little as possible. And all our lighting came from, you know, Home Depot or Lowe's or things like that, clamp-on lights. And then we had a little DVX100 DV camera, and I think that was the most expensive thing in the entire budget.
we all did like camera and lighting and filming and everything. And
We'd get together, and, you know, sometimes I was, you know, holding the mic like this, and then sometimes we're like, and go! And we'd run out into the middle of the street and do the scene.
I mean, one of the keys to low budget is instead of writing things that you have to manufacture, first, before you even write the script, get a list of all the things you already have for free.
No, it was made very creatively. It forced us to be creative on the amount of people and crew we had.
But it was fun. I mean, it was. I wanted people involved that really wanted to be there and wanted to have fun making a movie, and because for me, movies are fun. You've got to have fun doing it. Otherwise, what's the point? I mean, there's a lot of easier ways to make money.
You help him. That's it.
And you won't kill me? Let's do that again. Ariana, chicka-bye, chicka-bye, chicka-bye pie.
Tony has an exceptional gift as an actor. He's a brilliant actor, which I think makes him a brilliant director, because he's able to, and they're two separate things. You can be a brilliant director and just be an awful actor, and vice versa. It's true. We've seen it.
Tony has this like creative genius about him. He's like MacGyver with a movie.
Oh, you ordered pizza.
I'll clean it up.
Good. Yeah. You clean it up. You know, you have to.
And there were some scenes
Blood gets in the
that
ground.
we weren't able to complete. So Tony had to go in there and, okay, scratch that, and how are we going to make this work?
I don't like this scene. And he'd storyboard a scene. He'd like, this is how you're going to talk, and this is how I'm going to talk, and this is, what do we want to talk about, Ed? What do you think would be good? I don't know. Why don't we talk about this? He'd be like, yeah, and then he'd draw little dialogue bubbles, and you'd watch the process start from this little thing in his head, spew out all over his sketchbook. You go back and film it.
We were going to have to do some rewrites, a few recasts, and we looked at each other like, I think this is going to be a great film. And I was like, me too. And he's like, do you believe in it? It's like, I believe in it. So we dedicated some time to get this film finished, and it's worth it, and it works.
Film is something you really have to enjoy, you know, because if you don't enjoy it, what's the point, you know?
It's